The ship Harmonious Dawn glided through the dark space near the yellow star. Inside, Ambassador Vexthal stood before the viewing screen, his crystalline body reflecting the soft lights of the bridge. After 12,000 years of peace, the Galactic Collective had grown to 47 species, all living in harmony. Now they had found signals from another civilization. "The patterns are clear," said the communications officer, her tentacles dancing across the controls. "They call themselves humans. They come from the third planet." Vexthal felt excitement pulse through his crystal structure, a new species to welcome into the collective. Another voice in the great chorus of galactic peace. "Send our greeting message. Tell them we come as friends." The response came faster than expected. The humans seemed eager, almost excited. Within 3 days, both sides agreed to meet at a neutral space station that the collective built between Mars and Jupiter. Captain Sarah Chen was the first human to float through the airlock. She wore a blue uniform with strange symbols on the shoulders. Her face held a wide smile as she extended her hand toward Vexthal. "On behalf of humanity, welcome," she said. "We've dreamed of this moment for centuries." Vexthal looked at her outstretched hand. The collective's database had already explained this greeting ritual. He carefully extended one of his crystalline appendages and touched her palm. Her skin was warm, soft, but underneath he could sense the dense muscle and bone. The cultural exchange began immediately. The humans brought gifts, music, art, literature, and samples of their culture. Vexthal and his team studied everything with growing fascination and something else. Something that felt like unease. The first concern came from the entertainment officer, a small being named Pip who loved studying other cultures' art forms. "Ambassador," Pip said, his voice uncertain, "have you watched their entertainment programs?" Vexthal had not. "What troubles you?" "They watch violence. For fun." Pip brought up a screen showing what humans called a boxing match. 2 humans were hitting each other repeatedly while thousands of other humans cheered. This is their sport. They pay to watch other humans hurt each other. Vexthal felt a tremor through his structure. Perhaps it is staged? Like our theatrical performances? "The blood is real," Pip said quietly. That evening, Vexthal met with Captain Chen in the station's observation lounge. The Earth hung in the distance, a beautiful blue and green sphere. "Your world is lovely," Vexthal said. "Thank you," Chen replied, sipping from a cup of something hot. "We're proud of it, though it hasn't always been easy living there. I must ask you something, Captain. We observed some of your entertainment. The violence seems common." Chen's smile faded slightly. Yes, we've been expecting questions about that." She set down her cup. "Humans have a complicated history. We're actually quite peaceful now. We haven't had a major war in almost a century." "A century seems recent," Vexthal observed. "I suppose it does." Chen looked out at Earth. "We've worked very hard to move past our violent phase. Most species go through something similar, right?" Vexthal thought of the collective's history. Wars were so ancient that they existed only in archaeological records. "How long was this violent phase?" "Well," Chen said slowly, "we have written records going back about 5,000 years, and there was war in all of them. But that's behind us now. 5,000 years of continuous warfare." Vexthal felt something close to shock. The collective's last war had been 8,000 years ago, and it had lasted only 3 months before everyone realized how pointless it was. Over the next week, Vexthal's team continued their research. What they found disturbed them more each day. The linguists discovered that human languages were filled with war terminology. They used these words in daily conversation. A worker might attack a problem. A business could target customers. Students faced deadlines. Everything was combat, even when it was not. The anthropologist found that every human culture on every continent had independently invented warfare. There was no peaceful human society in all their history. Even their religious texts contained detailed rules about how to conduct wars properly. But it was the biologist's report that truly frightened Vexthal. Their eyes face forward, Dr. Kelmore explained, displaying a human skull. "This is a predator's eye placement. It provides depth perception for tracking prey." "Many species have forward-facing eyes," Vexthal protested. "Yes, but look at the rest." Kelmore brought up more images. "Their teeth include pointed canines for tearing meat. Their hands can form into fists, a structure with no purpose except hitting. And this, he highlighted the human arm structure. They can throw objects with incredible accuracy and force. They're the only species we've found with this level of throwing ability. Do you know what that's for, Ambassador? Tell me. Throwing weapons. Rocks, spears, anything. A human can kill from a distance with frightening precision. And their shoulder joints evolved specifically for this purpose. Vexthal examined the data in silence. Then he asked, "What kind of world makes a species like this?" "A terrible one," Kelmore said. "Their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. High gravity, extreme weather, thousands of predator species, countless diseases and toxins. Ambassador, Earth tried to kill humanity for millions of years, and humanity survived by becoming the greatest predator on the planet. That night, Vexthal accessed Earth's historical database. He wished he hadn't. World War I, 20 million dead. World War II, 85 million dead. The numbers were incomprehensible. And those were just 2 wars among thousands. Humans had developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They had built bombs that used the power of splitting atoms. They had created diseases to use against each other. They had made gases that dissolved lungs, and through all of it, they had survived. They had kept fighting. They had never given up. The most chilling moment came when Vexthal was reviewing a human military document. It contained something called Rules of War. Geneva Conventions, they called them. Humans had created laws about the proper way to conduct warfare. They had a concept of war crimes, meaning there were wrong ways and right ways to kill each other. What kind of species needed rules about how to fight wars? The next morning, Vexthal called an emergency meeting with his team. "We need to report this to the Council," he said. "Humanity is unlike any species we've encountered. They are the first Death World apex predator species to achieve spaceflight. What do we recommend?" asked Pip. Vexthal thought of Captain Chen's warm smile, her genuine enthusiasm for peace, the beautiful art and music humans had created. But he also thought of the boxing matches, the war museums, the weapons that could crack planets. "I don't know," he admitted. "The humans say they want peace. They seem sincere. But they're built for war. Every part of them. Their bodies, their minds, their culture. What happens if they decide peace is boring? What happens if they turn those abilities on us?" The team sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Kelmore spoke. "Maybe we're looking at this wrong. Yes, they're dangerous, but they chose to stop fighting. They chose peace even though war is in their nature. Doesn't that make them stronger than us? We were born peaceful. They became peaceful. Or," Vexthal said quietly, "they're just waiting, resting, preparing." He looked at the data one more time. "I'm sending my report to the Council. They need to know what we're inviting into the collective. They need to understand that humanity isn't like us. They're predators playing at being civilized, and I fear the day they stop playing." Dr. Kelmore had studied biology for 70 years. He had examined species from every corner of the galaxy. He thought he had seen everything evolution could create. Then he met the humans. The medical exchange program seemed innocent enough. Humans wanted to understand alien biology. The collective wanted to understand human biology. Everyone would benefit. So Kelmore found himself in a research station orbiting Earth, staring at a human volunteer named Marcus Webb. "So, what do you need me to do?" Marcus asked, sitting on the examination table. He was young, maybe 25 standard years. He smiled easily, showing those disturbing pointed teeth. "Just relax," Kelmore said, activating the scanning equipment. "This won't hurt." The initial scans confirmed what Kelmore already knew. Humans were dense. Their bones were thick and heavy. Their muscles were packed with fibers designed for explosive power. But as the scans went deeper, Kelmore began to see things that made no sense. "Marcus, your medical records show you broke your leg 2 years ago. Is this correct?" "Oh yeah," Marcus laughed. "Skiing accident. Hurt like hell. But you walk normally now." "Sure, it healed." Kelmore looked at the scan. The bone had not just healed. It had rebuilt itself stronger than before. The break point was now the thickest part of the bone. "Your body made the injury site more resistant to future damage." "I guess so. That's what bones do, right?" "No," Kelmore thought. "That's not what bones do. When other species broke bones, they healed weaker. They became vulnerable. But humans got stronger from damage." Over the next week, Kelmore examined 30 human volunteers. What he found terrified him more each day. Humans had a chemical in their bodies called adrenaline. When threatened, their bodies flooded with this hormone. It increased their strength, blocked pain, sharpened their senses, and made them faster. Essentially, humans had a built-in combat drug that activated automatically. But it got worse. Humans could keep functioning with injuries that would kill any collective species instantly. A human could lose a quarter of their blood and still fight. They could break bones and keep running. They could be stabbed, shot, or burned, and their bodies would simply refuse to die until the threat was eliminated. "We call it shock," explained Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, a human physician helping with the research. "The body prioritizes survival over pain. It shuts down non-essential systems and focuses everything on staying alive." "For how long?" Kelmore asked. "Depends on the injury. But there are cases of people fighting for hours with fatal wounds. The body doesn't realize it's dead yet, so it keeps going." Kelmore felt ill. What kind of evolution created a species that had to be killed multiple times to stay down? The endurance testing was even more disturbing. Kelmore had read about human persistence hunting, but seeing it was different. They put a human volunteer named Jennifer on a treadmill. She was 32 years old, average fitness. They asked her to run at a comfortable pace. She ran for 2 hours before Kelmore stopped the test. "You could continue?" he asked. Jennifer was breathing hard but smiled. "Oh yeah. I usually run for about 3 hours on weekends. Some people do ultramarathons. Those are like 100 miles. 100 miles. Kelmore could barely walk for 2 hours. Most collective species needed rest after 30 minutes of activity. But humans could just keep going, like machines, like Terminators. Our ancestors hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion," Jennifer explained, drinking water. "We're not the fastest species, but we're the most stubborn. We just don't stop." That night, Kelmore couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about persistence hunting. Humans would identify a prey animal, then chase it. The animal would run, fast and desperate, but humans would follow slow and steady. The animal would tire, stop to rest. The humans would catch up. The animal would run again. This would continue for hours, sometimes days, until the animal's heart gave out from exhaustion. Then the humans would calmly walk up and kill it. What kind of predator wins by being inevitable? The dietary research made Kelmore question reality itself. He watched in horror as Marcus ate something called hot sauce. "This contains capsaicin," Kelmore said, checking his scanner. "That's a poison." "A plant defense mechanism. Why are you eating poison?" Marcus grinned, his eyes watering. "Because it tastes good. You're in pain. Yeah, but it's a fun pain. Humans ate toxins for entertainment. They consumed alcohol, a literal poison that damaged their liver. They drank caffeine, a pesticide. They ate plants that evolved toxins specifically to avoid being eaten. And humans looked at these chemical weapons and said, 'Delicious.'" Dr. Okonkwo explained, "Humans evolved as scavengers and omnivores. We had to eat whatever we could find. So our bodies learned to process a wide range of substances. We're not immune to poisons, but we're very resistant." "What can't you eat?" Kelmore asked. Okonkwo thought for a moment. "Heavy metals, strong acids, most artificial chemicals. But natural stuff, we can usually handle it. Our ancestors ate rotten meat when necessary. We're tough." The social observations were perhaps most disturbing. Kelmore watched as Marcus greeted a friend in the station's common area. The friend had brought his pet. It was a dog. A 40-pound predator with sharp teeth and a strong jaw. A wolf barely domesticated, and Marcus immediately knelt down to pet it. "This is Duke," the friend said proudly. "He's a good boy." The dog licked Marcus's face. Marcus laughed. A predator was licking his face, and Marcus found it enjoyable. "You keep predators in your homes," Kelmore said weakly. "Dogs aren't really predators anymore," Marcus said, scratching Duke's ears. "We domesticated them 30,000 years ago. Now they're family. You turned wolves into pets." "Well, yeah. We also kept cats. Those are obligate carnivores. Can't survive without meat. But they're cute, so..." Marcus shrugged. Kelmore had to sit down. Humans had taken predators, creatures designed to kill, and made them into companions. They slept next to these animals, let them around their children, fed them and loved them. What kind of species befriends predators? The answer Kelmore realized was simple: predators. Pack hunters who recognized other pack hunters. Apex predators who saw no threat from lesser carnivores. His final test was reaction time and pattern recognition. He set up a simulation where random objects would appear on a screen. The subject had to track them and predict their movement. Marcus scored better than any collective species. His eyes locked onto targets instantly. His brain calculated trajectories without conscious thought. When Kelmore made the objects move erratically, Marcus adapted within seconds. Your ancestors hunted fast-moving prey, Kelmore said, studying the results. Yep. Deer, rabbits, birds. If it moved, we chased it, Marcus stretched. Anything else you need? Just one more question. What is a berserker? Marcus's expression changed. Became serious. That's complicated. It's a Norse word. Refers to warriors who would enter a kind of trance during battle. They'd feel no pain, no fear, just rage and the need to destroy enemies. Why do you ask? Your medical literature mentions berserker rage as a psychological condition. Oh, yeah. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Sometimes humans under extreme stress enter a state where they just snap. All higher reasoning shuts off. They become pure aggression. It's rare and we treat it as a disorder now. But it used to be seen as a warrior's gift, a gift. Humans considered uncontrollable violence to be a gift. That evening, Kelmore compiled his report for Ambassador Vexthal. His hands shook as he typed. Humanity represents an unprecedented threat level, he wrote. They are the result of millions of years of pressure from a hostile world. Every system in their body is designed for violence and survival. They heal stronger from injuries. They can fight through wounds that should kill them. They never tire. They can eat toxins. They keep predators as pets because they don't fear other predators. Their senses are optimized for tracking and killing. But most concerning is their adaptability. Humans don't just survive. They thrive. They turn disadvantages into advantages. They make the impossible routine. They look at a problem and solve it through sheer stubbornness. The collective has existed for 12,000 years without meeting a species like this. We are herbivores and filter feeders, philosophers and artists. We chose peace because violence seemed pointless. Humans chose peace despite being built for war, and I fear that choice is temporary, because I've seen what they are beneath the smile and kindness. They're survivors. They're hunters. They're the species that Earth couldn't kill. If they decide to stop being peaceful, nothing in the galaxy can stop them. Kelmore sent the report and looked out at Earth. It glowed softly in the darkness, beautiful and terrible. Down there, 8 billion apex predators were pretending to be civilized. He wondered how long the pretense would last. Shivara had always loved studying cultures. As the collective's chief anthropologist, she had spent decades learning how different species expressed themselves through art, language, and tradition. She approached humanity with the same enthusiasm. Within 2 months, that enthusiasm had turned to dread. She started with human languages. There were thousands of them, which was already unusual. Most species had 1 or 2 languages. But humans had developed separate languages in every region of their world, often multiple languages in the same region. What disturbed Shivara was not the diversity. It was the vocabulary. Every human language was soaked in combat terminology. They didn't just have words for war, they used war words for everything. A business might launch a campaign to capture market share and target customers. A student might tackle a problem or attack an assignment. Workers faced deadlines, a term from actual executions. Shivara made a list. It grew disturbing quickly. Ambush, assault, battle, bombard, campaign, captive, conquer, deadline, defeat, execute, fight, firing line, front line, guard, hit, kill, offensive, retreat, shoot down, strike, target, under fire, war chest, weapon. These weren't special military terms. These were normal words that humans used every single day. Children used them in school. Business leaders used them in meetings. The words for violence were woven into casual speech so deeply that humans didn't even notice. She asked a human colleague, David Rodriguez, about this. Huh, David said, thinking. I never really noticed. But yeah, I guess we do that. Fight for your rights and battle the competition and defend your position. It's just how we talk. Why? Shivara asked. David shrugged. Maybe because conflict is everywhere. We compete for jobs, for resources, for mates. Everything is a struggle, so we talk about it like a struggle. The collective doesn't live this way. Well, you guys are lucky, David smiled. Humans had to fight for everything. Maybe that's why our language reflects it. Shivara moved on to human games, hoping to find something innocent. She found the opposite. Human children played tag, which was practice for chasing prey. They played hide and seek, which taught tracking and ambush skills. They played dodgeball, where they threw objects at each other. Their video games simulated combat. Their board games were about war and conquest. Even chess, which seemed intellectual, was a simulation of medieval warfare. She watched human children at play on the observation deck of the space station. Two boys were pretending to shoot each other with their fingers. Bang. "I got you!" "No, you didn't." "I got you first." They were play fighting, practicing murder while laughing. Their parents watched and smiled. Shivara felt sick. Collective children played cooperative games. They built things together, told stories, made music. They didn't practice killing. Sports were even worse. Humans had invented hundreds of sports, and most involved combat or combat simulation. Boxing, wrestling, martial arts, fencing, even their team sports like football and hockey were violent. Players crashed into each other at full speed. Injuries were common. Concussions were expected, and millions of humans watched these sports. Cheered for them, paid enormous sums of money to see other humans hurt each other. "It's controlled violence," explained David when she asked. "It's a way to channel aggression into something relatively safe. Better to hit each other in a boxing ring than in the streets. Why must you hit each other at all?" David looked confused. "It's fun, and it's tradition. Humans have always tested themselves against each other. It's how we measure strength and skill." The music research was equally disturbing. Human music had rhythm, which was beautiful. But it also had war drums, battle hymns, marching songs. Every culture had music designed to pump up warriors before combat. The rhythms matched the human heartbeat during stress, preparing the body for violence. She listened to something called heavy metal and had to turn it off after 30 seconds. The aggressive sound made her want to flee. David said it was awesome and played it while working out. Human art confused her. It was often beautiful, technically impressive, but violent themes appeared everywhere. Paintings of battles, sculptures of warriors, stories about heroes who solved problems through combat. Even their romance stories often included fighting. "Don't you have any peaceful art?" she asked David. "Sure, tons. But conflict makes stories interesting. A story where everyone agrees and nothing goes wrong is boring. We like tension, struggle, resolution. The hero's journey, right? Challenge, battle, victory. All your stories are about fighting?" "Not all. But most, I guess. Even love stories have conflict. The lovers have to fight society or circumstances or themselves. Struggle is interesting. Peace is..." David searched for the word. "Peace is the ending. It's what you get after the story is over." That statement haunted Shivara for days. For humans, peace was an ending. It was what came after. War and struggle were the story itself. She began researching human history more deeply. What she found was horrifying. Humans had been at war continuously for their entire recorded history. Not one single year of global peace. Not one generation that didn't fight. War after war after war, each more destructive than the last. The world wars were beyond comprehension. Entire continents involved. Millions of soldiers, cities destroyed, whole populations mobilized for killing, and humans had fought with incredible determination. They had starved, frozen, bled, and died in trenches and jungles and deserts. They had never surrendered the will to fight. Worst of all, they had rules for war, the Geneva Conventions, laws about proper conduct during warfare. Humans had sat down and created extensive documents about the correct way to kill each other. There were rules about prisoners, rules about civilians, rules about weapons. Humans had banned certain types of bullets because they were too cruel, while still allowing bombs and fire. They had debates about which methods of killing were acceptable. This implied two things. First, humans expected war to happen. Second, they believed there were right and wrong ways to conduct it. What kind of species needs an ethics system for murder? Shivara found lists of war crimes, acts that humans themselves considered beyond the pale. And yet these crimes had been committed repeatedly throughout history. Humans knew these things were wrong and did them anyway. Then they held trials and punished the perpetrators. They had a word for this: crimes against humanity. Even humans recognized that humans could be monstrous. They had codified it, studied it, tried to prevent it, and failed again and again. One day, the station held a cultural festival. Each species showed their traditional practices. The collective species performed music, displayed art, and demonstrated crafts. The humans did a sword dance. Shivara watched as a group of human performers, dressed in traditional clothing, moved through a choreographed routine with sharp metal blades. The movements were beautiful, graceful, precise. The audience clapped along to the drums. Then Shivara realized what she was watching. The movements weren't just dance. They were attack patterns. Slash, parry, thrust, spin, strike. This was a training exercise disguised as entertainment. They were teaching combat techniques through dance. Even their art was tactical. She approached David afterward. That was a fighting technique. Yeah, sword dancing has roots in military training, but now it's just cultural tradition. Nobody actually fights with swords anymore. But you preserve the knowledge. Sure, it's history, part of our heritage. David smiled. Besides, it looks cool. Shivara went back to her quarters and began her report for Ambassador Vexthal. Her hands were shaking. Human culture is warfare culture, she wrote. It permeates every aspect of their civilization. Their language is violent. Their games prepare children for combat. Their sports are ritualized fighting. Their art glorifies warriors. Their music pumps them up for battle. Their history is an unbroken chain of warfare. Most disturbing is that humans have created an entire philosophical framework around war. They have military academies that teach strategy and tactics. They have libraries full of books about warfare. They study famous generals like other species study philosophers. Sun Tzu's art of war is taught in their business schools. They apply military thinking to everything. The collective's last war ended 8,000 years ago because everyone agreed fighting was pointless. We stopped because we saw no reason to continue. Humans have never stopped. They created laws to make war more humane. They built monuments to remember their wars. They teach their children about battles and heroes. War is not an aberration in human culture. It is the foundation. When Captain Chen says humans are peaceful now, what she means is they aren't actively killing each other this century. But the capacity, the knowledge, the cultural framework, all of it remains. They are warriors on a break, and everything they do, every word they speak, every game they play, keeps them ready to fight again. I don't believe humans are evil, but I believe they are dangerous in a way the collective has never encountered. They are a species that evolved for war, developed culture around war, and defined themselves by war. They talk constantly about peace, and I think they genuinely want it. But their entire civilization is built on the assumption that peace is temporary and war is inevitable. They say they've changed, but their children still play fight. Their language still speaks of battles. Their art still glorifies warriors. You can't separate humans from their vile. The Vexkar swarm appeared without warning at the edge of collective space. They were not interested in diplomacy. They were not interested in peace. They consumed everything in their path: ships, stations, entire planets. The swarm was a hive mind from another galaxy, and they were hungry. Ambassador Vexthal stood in the emergency council chamber, watching the holographic displays in horror. 12 collective worlds had gone dark. Billions of lives simply erased. We must defend ourselves, said Council Speaker Temvik, an elderly being from one of the oldest collective species. With what? Asked another counselor. We have ceremonial defense fleets. We haven't fought a real war in 8,000 years. We don't have weapons, we don't have soldiers, we have scholars and artists and engineers, but no warriors. The room fell silent. It was true. The collective had grown soft during millennia of peace. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not combat. Their people had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten that the universe could be hostile. There is one option, Vexthal said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. We asked the humans for help. The reaction was immediate. Several counselors objected loudly. Humans had been full members of the collective for only 6 months. They were the species everyone feared, the warriors, the predators, the ones built for war. We cannot, Temvik said firmly. Bringing humans into this could be as dangerous as the swarm itself. Once we show them that warfare is needed, once we give them permission to be violent, we may never be able to stop them. Then we die, Vexthal said simply. The swarm will consume us world by world. We have no other choice. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, survival won over fear. The council voted to request human military assistance. Captain Sarah Chen received the message personally. Vexthal watched her face on the communications screen as she read the request. Her expression changed from surprise to something else, something hard. You're asking us to go to war, Chen said. We have no one else to turn to. You're scared of us. You've been scared since we met, and now you want us to do the thing you're afraid of? Yes, Vexthal admitted. We are terrified. But we're more afraid of extinction. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. We'll help. But Ambassador, you need to understand something. If we do this, you're going to see what we really are. You're going to watch humans at war. And it won't be pretty. Are you prepared for that? No, Vexthal said honestly. But we have no choice. All right then, Chen said, and her smile was nothing like her usual warm expression. This smile was sharp. Humanity is mobilizing. We'll be ready in 72 hours. 72 hours. The collective would have needed months to prepare anything. Humans did it in 3 days. The change in humanity was immediate and terrifying. Every human adult, it turned out, had basic military training. Every human child learned strategy games. Their entire society was designed to mobilize for war at a moment's notice, even after a century of peace. Human ships began arriving at collective space. They were not exploration vessels. These were warships, lean, fast, covered in weapons. The humans had built a military fleet and just kept it, just in case. General Marcus Stone came through the airlock of the command station. He was a large man, scarred and hard-eyed. He saluted Chen, then turned to Vexthal. Ambassador, I'm told you have a bug problem. The swarm has taken 12 worlds. We estimate they'll reach our core systems within 2 months. Show me. They went to the tactical room. Stone studied the displays in silence, his eyes tracking the swarm's movements. Vexthal watched him calculate, analyze, plan. It took less than 5 minutes. They're predictable, Stone said. Swarm tactics. Overwhelming numbers, direct assault, consume everything, no subtlety. He pointed to the display. We'll hit them here, here, and here. Feint attacks to draw them out. Then we collapse on their main force from 3 sides. You'll need to sacrifice ships for the feints, Vexthal said. Yes, people will die. Yes, Stone said, meeting his eyes. That's what war means. People die so that more people can live. It's terrible, but it's necessary. Your people need to understand we're going to lose ships and humans are going to die. But we'll win. The first battle happened 1 week later. Vexthal watched from the command station, horrified. The humans fought nothing like the collective expected. They didn't engage in honorable combat. They used tricks. They hid ships behind debris fields and ambushed swarm elements. They sent out false signals to confuse the hive mind. They sacrificed damaged ships by ramming them into swarm clusters, and they laughed. Between coordinating attacks, Vexthal heard human soldiers joking with each other, making dark humor about their situation. One pilot, whose ship was heavily damaged, sang an old Earth song as he crashed into a swarm vessel, taking out dozens of enemy ships. Acceptable losses, General Stone said after the battle. 20 human ships destroyed, 3,000 humans dead, and he called it acceptable. How can you accept this? Vexthal asked. Because we saved 15,000 collective civilians on that colony, Stone replied. The math is simple. 3,000 for 15,000 is a trade I'll make every time. It's horrible, but that's command. You make the terrible choices so others don't have to. Over the next month, Vexthal watched humans do things that should have been impossible. They fought for days without rest. They coordinated attacks across light years of space with precision timing. They invented new tactics in the middle of battles. They adapted to swarm strategies faster than the hive mind could evolve. Most disturbing was their comfort with violence. After a brutal battle that left hundreds dead, Vexthal found human soldiers in the mess hall eating, joking, playing cards. They had just watched their friends die and they were laughing. How do you do this? He asked Chen, who sat nearby. Do what? Function. After seeing such death. Chen looked at her coffee. We compartmentalize. We process grief later, but in the moment, we focus on the mission. If we fall apart every time someone dies, we can't function. So we push it down. Do our jobs and deal with the emotions when the fighting stops. She looked at him. It's not healthy, probably, but it works. You're comfortable in war. I wouldn't say comfortable, but familiar, yes. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. We're good at it because we've practiced. That's not something to be proud of, but it is reality. The decisive battle came 6 weeks after humans joined the fight. General Stone had lured the main swarm fleet into a trap. 3 human battle groups waited in hiding. When the swarm arrived, the humans struck from all sides. Vexthal watched the battle from the command center. It was choreographed destruction. Humans moved like they shared one mind, anticipating each other's actions. They used weapons the collective had never imagined. Kinetic missiles that turned ships into shrapnel, directed energy beams that cooked, swarm vessels from the inside, even nuclear weapons that humans had kept from their old wars. The swarm fought back desperately, but they were facing a predator species that understood war at a fundamental level. Every human tactical decision was based on thousands of years of military history. They knew when to advance and when to retreat. They knew when to sacrifice and when to preserve. They understood that war was not about honor or glory, it was about winning. After 8 hours, the swarm fleet was destroyed. The hive mind, damaged beyond repair, retreated to deep space. The collective was safe, but at terrible cost. 8,000 human soldiers had died, 37 ships destroyed, and General Stone stood at the command center, reading the casualty reports with no expression. Victory, he said simply, at an acceptable cost. That evening, Vexthal found Chen on the observation deck looking at the stars. She was crying silently. I thought you said humans could compartmentalize. Vexthal said gently. We can. During the fight. Chen wiped her eyes. But now the fight's over. Now I get to feel it. 8,000 people, Vexthal. 8,000 humans who'll never go home, and I gave the orders that sent them to die. You saved billions of collective lives. I know. That's what makes it bearable. But it doesn't make it easy. She looked at him. You understand now, don't you? What we are. You've seen us at war. Are you more afraid of us than before? Vexthal thought carefully before answering. Yes and no. I'm afraid of what you can do. The efficiency, the violence, the casual acceptance of death. But I'm also grateful. And I understand something I didn't before. What's that? You chose peace despite being good at war. That makes your choice meaningful. We were peaceful because we didn't know how to fight. You're peaceful because you know exactly what fighting costs. That's stronger somehow. Chen smiled sadly. Maybe. Or maybe we're just tired of killing. Either way, the war's over. The swarm is gone. And now we have to decide what kind of relationship the collective and humanity will have going forward. That, Vexthal said, is a conversation for the Council, and I suspect it will be complicated. Below them, human ships were gathering their dead, preparing for memorial services, mourning their losses. But they were ready, Vexthal knew, to fight again if needed. They would always be ready. That was what made them tarry. The collective council chamber had never been so tense. Representatives from all 47 species gathered to discuss one question: what to do about humanity. The swarm was gone. The immediate threat had passed, but now the collective faced a different problem. They had invited warriors into their peaceful society, and those warriors had proven exactly how dangerous they could be. Ambassador Vexthal stood before the council, preparing to give his final report on humanity. He had spent 6 months studying them, watched them save the collective and seen them at their best and worst. Now he had to help decide their future. Council Speaker Temvik spoke first. The chamber recognizes Ambassador Vexthal. Present your findings. Vexthal activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing human history, biology, culture, and military capabilities. The assembled counselors shifted uncomfortably as the data scrolled past. Humanity is a paradox, Vexthal began. They are the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. They are also the most determined to be peaceful. Understanding both these truths is essential. We have seen their danger, said Counselor Ventok, a nervous being from a water world. They killed 8,000 of their own people and called it acceptable. They use weapons that crack planets. They laugh after battles. They are monsters pretending to be civilized. I used to think that, Vexthal admitted, but I was wrong. Humans aren't pretending. They genuinely want peace. But they come from a world that tried to kill them for millions of years. They survived by becoming the greatest predators on Earth. Every part of them, from their biology to their culture, was shaped by constant warfare. He changed the display to show human evolution. Humans didn't choose to be this way. Earth made them this way. High gravity made them strong. Predators made them fierce. Scarcity made them competitive. They evolved surrounded by things trying to kill them, so they learned to kill better. Then they are weapons, Ventok insisted. Biological weapons created by a death world. No, said a new voice. Captain Sarah Chen walked into the chamber. She wasn't supposed to be here, but no one stopped her. We're survivors. There's a difference, Temvik gestured for her to continue. Chen stood beside Vexthal, facing the entire collective council. You're right that Earth made us dangerous, Chen said. Everything you've learned about us is true. We're predators. We're built for violence. Our culture is soaked in warfare. But here's what you're missing. We hate it. You seemed comfortable during the battles, Ventok said. Familiar isn't the same as comfortable. We know how to fight because we've had to. For thousands of years, if you didn't know how to fight, you died. So we learned. We got good at it. But that doesn't mean we enjoy it. Chen walked to the center of the chamber. Every human culture has war monuments. Do you know what they say? They don't say glory to war, they say never again. We build memorials to remember the dead and the cost. We teach history so future generations understand how terrible war is. We don't glorify violence, we mourn it. She pulled up images on the display. Human war memorials covered in names of the dead. This is the Vietnam Memorial. 58,000 names. Everyone a person who died in a war that shouldn't have happened. We built this monument not to celebrate war but to remember its cost. So we'd think twice before doing it again. More images appeared. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial, the Holocaust Museum, Arlington Cemetery. Rows upon rows of graves we remember, Chen said softly. Every war, every death, every mistake. We carry the weight of our history because we never want to repeat it. That's why we built peace. Not because we don't know how to fight, but because we know exactly what fighting costs. Then why keep weapons? Asked another counselor. Why maintain a military if you want peace? Because the universe is dangerous, Chen replied. The swarm proved that. You needed us because you'd forgotten that danger exists. We never forgot. We hoped we'd never need to fight again, but we stayed ready just in case. And good thing we did, or you'd all be dead. The chamber fell silent. It was a harsh truth, but accurate. Vexithal spoke again. The question before us is not whether humans are dangerous, they are. The question is whether we trust them with that danger. How can we? Ventok demanded. They killed the swarm with such efficiency. What happens when they decide to kill us? Then we're already dead, Vexthal said bluntly. Humans could have conquered the collective at any time. They have the weapons, the tactics, the will. They didn't need our permission to join. They could have taken what they wanted. But they didn't. They asked to be our friends. They waited for our approval. They respected our wishes even though they didn't have to. That tells me something important. He turned to face the full council. Humans chose peace from a position of strength. That's rare. Most species choose peace because they're weak or afraid. Humans chose peace because they decided it was right. They could dominate the galaxy, but they'd rather explore it. They could take whatever they want, but they'd rather trade for it. They could rule through fear, but they'd rather earn respect. Dr. Kelmore stood up from the observers section. May I speak? Temvik nodded. I studied human biology extensively, Kelmore said. I was horrified by what I found. They're designed to be nearly unkillable. They heal from terrible injuries. They can fight through pain that would disable any of us. But I also learned something else. Humans are incredibly empathetic. They feel each other's pain. They care for their wounded. They mourn their dead. Their medicine is more advanced than ours because they're desperate to save lives. They're predators with the hearts of healers. It's contradictory, but it's real. Shivara stood as well. I studied their culture. I found violence everywhere. But I also found art, music, poetry, philosophy. Humans spend more time creating beauty than they do fighting. For every weapon they've invented 100 tools for building, healing, learning. War is part of their history, but it's not all of their history. Maybe not even most of it. Chen smiled at them gratefully, then addressed the council again. You're trying to decide if we're safe. I can't promise we are. Humans are flawed. We make mistakes. We have capacity for great evil, but we also have capacity for great good. We saved the collective not because we had to, but because it was right. We lost 8,000 people defending strangers. That's who we are too. So what do you propose? Temvik asked Vextal. Full membership, Vextal said firmly. With a new role, humans become the guardians of the peace. They maintain their military. They stay ready for threats, but they operate under collective oversight. They protect us and we keep them honest. It's a partnership built on trust and mutual need. You trust them? Ventok asked skeptically. I trust their desire for peace, Vextal replied. And I understand that peace requires strength. We learned that the hard way. Humans knew it all along. We need them. Not just as warriors, but as teachers. They can show us how to defend ourselves while remaining true to our values. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors remained afraid. Others saw the practical necessity. But slowly, a consensus formed. Finally, Temvik called for a vote. The chamber went silent as the results appeared on the display. 39 species voted yes. 8 voted no. Humanity was granted full membership as guardians of the peace. Chen bowed to the council. We accept the responsibility, and we promise to use our strength only in defense of peace. We'll be the sword the collective hopes to never use, but we'll be ready when needed. After the session, Vextal and Chen stood on the observation deck, watching Earth rise in the viewport. Are you happy with the decision? Vextal asked. Relieved, Chen said. I was worried you'd reject us, or try to disarm us. That would have been complicated. You would have refused. Yes. We've learned too many times that weakness invites aggression. We stay strong so we can be gentle. It's a hard lesson, but it's kept us alive. Vextal's crystalline form shimmered thoughtfully. I need to apologize. When we first met, I was terrified of you. I saw only the violence, the danger. I miss the courage it takes to choose peace when you're built for war. You're not frightening because you can fight. You're remarkable because you choose not to. We're still frightening, Chen said with a slight smile. Let's be honest. Yes, Vextal agreed. But now I understand why. You're frightening because you're everything we're not. You're survivors, fighters, predators. But you're also dreamers who want a better universe. That combination is powerful and necessary. Below them, on the station, human and collective children were playing together. A young human girl was teaching an alien child how to play catch. The alien kept missing, and the girl patiently showed her how to watch the ball. Do you know what I learned from studying humans? Vextal said. Real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about choosing not to hit when you could. You're not strong because you won the war against the swarm. You're strong because you've been winning the war against your own nature for a century. That's true victory. Chen watched the children play. We're not perfect. We'll make mistakes. Some humans will forget why we chose peace. We'll have to keep reminding ourselves that being good at war doesn't mean we should seek it.